Oh, I know, because I can too. That's why our videos end up being so long.
But once, I know that's a problem.
All right, looks like we are live. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this Twitch stream, which actually there probably isn't going to be anybody joining us on the Twitch stream.
It's more a formality.
Yeah, it's more of a formality. Plus, we want to, start getting used to Twitch so that we can do more stuff over there. But for every Twitch video, since they don't hold on to them, we do upload them on Koricon Nerds YouTube channel, and I turn them into podcasts, and they go on the SoundCloud, which is also on Google Play and iTunes and Stitcher and TuneIn. Basically, if there's a place to play a podcast, it'll be there if you just do a search for Koricon. So, and
then most likely in the comments you'll be told that you're wrong.
Yeah, pretty much. But today we are going to talk about Ready Player One. We've all seen it. We have my spoiler-free review is up on Koricon Nerd right now. This is going to be very much of a spoiler discussion. So if you have not seen it and you're interested, go watch it and watch my spoiler-free and then come back and check this out. But,
or if you don't care, watch
this anyway. Yeah.
And then watch the spoiler-free discussion to see.
Yeah, you can skip the movie and just watch all my videos. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
So overall, without too much detail, what did you guys think of the movie? I'm going to say I had a lot of fun with it. Like, when I left the theater, I felt like it was really fun. I have a feeling Matt hated it. So what do you think, Ian?
I did not hate it. I thought there was a lot of fun moments in the movie. I wish there had been a little more character. Is probably the main thing that I would have liked more of. More character development. Because that's what I'm kind of used to from Steven Spielberg when he's at its best.
Right.
I go to him to see interesting characters and cool stories. So,
Matt?
I got a cool story that needs more characters.
I don't normally say this ever, but when I was in the movie theater, and can I cuss on this?
Yeah.
All right. It starts, and I went, fuck me. So that's what I think of this movie.
From the beginning?
From when it went to jump, both my friend and I, Richie, we both went, fuck me.
Why?
I hate Van Halen with a passion, and I hate that song. I hate a lot of 80s music. And I'm like, oh,
Wasn't
God.
The song in the
you
trailer?
hate 80s music and you watched a movie that is based on 80s nostalgia?
I was forced to. We're like, let's do Ready Player One. And I'm like, oh, no. Then, no, you can't say I watched it because I wanted to. I was forced to. There's a difference.
Uh-huh.
We did not force Matt to watch this movie.
I was doing it for the fans, doing it for the peeps.
Well, look, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and I love 80s music. It's cheesy. I agree. But I love it.
See, I like the darker stuff from the 80s.
You
like Metallica.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Metallica's amazing. If they played, For Whom the Bells Toll at the beginning, I'd be like, F yeah, let's do this. Let's kick the crap out of some people.
They wouldn't do that because Metallica would charge too much money.
Oh, yeah. Or, like, if they had Pantera Walk, I'd have been like, hell yeah, let's do this.
Well, that doesn't really spark nostalgia except for a core, smaller group of us.
Or, there might start a riot or a pit in the theater.
But Pantera wasn't... Pantera wasn't even on the radio.
Yeah.
The whole movie is based on 80s nostalgia, so you want to hit the core amount, which is pop music, pop culture. Everything about the book and the movie is about pop. It's pop culture stuff.
Well, my biggest problem is 60 to 70% of the culture is not from the 80s. Like King Kong, 30s. Godzilla, 60s. Halo, definitely not the 80s.
No, the idea is the guy that created the Oasis was a nerd in the 80s. So he has pop culture from then and before. All of us that grew up in the 80s, we loved the old Frankenstein and Dracula and King Kong. It would be pretty much from the point of view of somebody that was living in the 80s, so it would be that current pop culture and early.
Well, I mean, then I would still say that Halo is definitely not
No.
a part of that.
But I would also say that it progressed and evolved into what it was at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that the 80s is like a big part of the feel of the movie, but all the references are all stuff that links back to Halliday's like life. So if he liked it, it's in the Oasis, or if he's aware of it, it's in the Oasis. Like the whole thing's there to make money too. So
yeah, and I'm sure even after his death, you had things like, or even before his death, they would have, I guess you would call a DLC or an expansion or things that were added to the game. It's not going to be a static game. So you have
Actually,
characters...
they'd be called mods.
Whatever. It could be an expansion. You know, mods, expansions, DLCs. You're adding to the game. So they would add characters. They would add this and that. They would add Halo. They would add Overwatch. You know, because I saw a couple of Overwatch characters.
Yeah. It's the I can't think of her name, but I was like, hey, it's the cover of Overwatch.
Yeah, the main girl. I never played Overwatch, but I know what the characters look like because of all the like gaming websites and stuff that I've YouTube channels that I watch, like Boogie 2988 and whatever else. But I did like all of the references. Like, it does play on my nostalgia. And it could be because it really is made for people my age. That's, you know, the guy that wrote the book was my age. All the references in there are for people my age that grew up at that time. I was wondering for you two, since you're a lot younger than I am, were there a lot of references that you could tell this is a reference to something, but you have no idea what it's a reference to?
I think for me, I got most of them, unless, you know, something in the background, because there's so much stuff that's happening in this movie that it's kind of hard to, like, because kind of what I wanted was, you know, some of these characters that I love and adore come together and fight the big baddies, which kind of does with Iron Giant, but, you know, a lot of them, obviously, you know, Goro, the Xenomorph, like all of that, I instantly knew, because I'm a giant nerd, and even though I was born in the 90s, a lot of the stuff that I watched was from the 80s, 70s, and 90s.
Well, those are the popular things. I'm talking like maybe more obscure. You know, did you see something and you're like, that's got to be an obscure reference, but I don't know what it is.
I honestly, I don't know. Most of the references were pretty well known. I mean, unless, like, because they don't show any obscure horror characters unless I didn't see them. They didn't show, like, any obscure movies, except for the Bungalow, whatever the hell that movie was. Like, the favorite movie, I had no idea what the hell that was.
What about you, Ian? Was there anything that you were like, this has to be a reference, but I don't know what it's a reference to?
I don't know if there was anything that I didn't really get. I think it took me a while at the beginning to kind of get used to how much was on the screen. Getting used to the Oasis took a while. I mean, I think it also was hard because you were in like a car chase, and so it was a very immersive like introduction, and you're trying to look for every little thing that they could be referencing on there. So I mean, after it took me a while to kind of like settle into, okay, I'm not gonna look around for stuff, and if I happen to see something, then that's cool. I didn't really know about the motorbike that Artemis has.
That's the Tron bike.
I heard it was like from some anime thing.
That's the Akira bike.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, but they had like the green wheel. It was the red bike.
Yeah, Akira? It was the red
Yeah.
Akira bike.
Oh, yeah. Did someone else have the Tron bike?
Maybe. I think they did have the what you're thinking of is they had the lights on the wheels.
Yeah, the light cycle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that it wasn't the Tron bike. They may have had a Tron bike in there, but she had lights on her wheels that made it look kind of like a Tron bike, but it wasn't. It was Akira's. It was Akira's
Okay.
bike.
The only other thing was when they got to The Shining, and I was pretty sure there weren't zombies in The Shining, but
Yeah.
I did like that.
They
sequence
did mention that,
because
though.
They I think they realized that might not, because like with Steven Spielberg, he's very broad, high concept sort of director. So in a story where you could have easily made it like really like niche, I guess, they made at least that part of the story for like, because I figure younger audiences probably aren't watching The Shining. So like for that, it was like, let's let you know what's not actually in the movie so that you don't go like, I don't really get this. But I think they did a good job of kind of making the story more about the Oasis and having those other things kind of layer on without it being just about, oh, you need to watch every television show from the 80s like the characters in the story in order to solve the puzzles.
Right, yeah, it was more like they had multiple layers on there, but you had to know specific references, like the room that was in The Shining. You know, it's the famous room. What happens in that room? The whole thing with the zombies dancing in the air. No, that wasn't in The Shining. That was just added as part of the puzzle. It was really.
But what I liked about that is they had the character there who hadn't seen The Shining, and so like the whole time, you know, you could either follow along with that character if you're not familiar with the story, and be like, oh, what's going to happen? Oh, this is kind of funny that we're the fish out of water in the moment, and everybody else knows what's going to happen, or yeah, so you can relate to either one of those situations, which I thought was interesting because I don't feel like movies usually do that.
Yeah, that's true. Having a character that didn't know, plus there was a nice joke with it. You know, they're like, "How have you not seen The Shining?" You know? He's like, "Well,
I have not seen The Shining, and I own it. I know Ian hasn't either, so...
I haven't seen it, but I don't own it.
I am shaking my head in disapproval right now.
Hey, there's movies I have seen that you have not, so don't go there.
Okay, Chicken
Game of
Jack.
Death 45.
I did like how they recreated the blood hotel, or the twins with the blood coming out of the elevator. Their recreation,
You did or didn't?
I did. The recreation of that scene was spot on from the Kubrick movie.
I really wanted to CG Jack Nicholson, because I knew it would be bad. That's why I wanted...
Yeah, they kind of inferred that with the guy chasing him through the snow, that is him, but it was more of a monstered version. And I think Spielberg would not want to try and recreate something that detailed as a CGI character. Like, he knows it wouldn't look good. It would look like Princess Leia in Rogue One. You know, it would just
Or
be
Jeff
bad.
Bridges in Tron, too.
Yeah. Even though that was a long time ago, and we were not ready for that kind of CG work. Rogue One was 2 years ago. They should have been able to do it. But
Yeah.
anyway, there was one reference that I was wondering if anyone else got, and I was going to look up the toy so I could get the specific name. But when they have the battle scene near the end, and you have Iron Giant and everybody there, right? And then you had the bad guy was in the...
Mechagodzilla.
Yeah, the Mechagodzilla. When they come to the side of him and she throws the bomb in there. That toy was a ball with a guy's face. He had an eye
Yeah, I
patch.
had no idea what that was.
I used to have one of those. And I'm trying to remember the stupid name of it. But it was basically like a little... It was just a ball. Like, it had air. It had air in it, and when you squeezed it, like, his eye would pop or something like that. But
Yeah.
it was supposed to be like it was like around that time when they had the Garbage Pail Kids, when kids liked
And the
like
Pet Rock.
yeah, like gross characters and whatnot. He was kind of like a gross character type of ball. But as soon as I saw it, I was like, holy crap! Like even I forgot about that toy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so I was wondering how many people actually picked that up or know what it is. I mean, a lot of people probably do know what it is. That's why they put it in the movie. But I was wondering, those kind of references, I think the younger group like you guys would not see or notice. And then there's probably references that you guys notice that I would not know. Is there anything that you guys noticed from your youth that might go over my head?
No, because like it didn't have stuff like, you know, Sailor Moon or Powerpuff Girls or Dexter's Laboratory or, you know, like that type of stuff. I mean, you know, the main things were, you know, it had Mobile Suit Gundam, which I knew instantly that's what he was going to get into. I was like, please don't be a Gundam. And then he said, I'm like, it's a Gundam.
Why not?
But
that's a popular.
yeah, I don't know. It was just too much for me.
A little on the nose, Matt.
Yeah. Like, and one of my biggest problems actually with the movie was there's so much expository dialogue. They narrate for like the first 25 minutes, and they're still explaining stuff throughout the movie. It's like, can we just like make this universe somewhat smaller? Like they're doing the mother box thing as Justice League, where there's 3 keys and you got to go find them, and oh, this crazy adventure. It's like, oh god, stop doing this. Like, just make it simpler. Like, I don't know. Like, there's just so much them narrating and them telling us what this is, and they're still doing that almost like at the very end of the movie.
Yeah, I didn't mind the narration in the beginning just because, you know, they were trying to get through the beginning of the book pretty quick, you know, and get to something more interesting. Otherwise, you have, in a big action movie that's supposed to be fast-paced, you have the first half hour being slow characterization and the tone is off. But I do agree the narration through the second half of the movie are like, why are you still narrating this stuff? You know, you should be able to show it to us either in visual storytelling or through the dialogue that's between characters. You don't need to be narrating anymore.
They explain things that they just showed like 5 seconds before, like why they did. I'm like, that's a kid's show. You know, that's what you see on Saturday morning cartoons sometimes. Like sometimes they do that. You know, obviously we just watched that episode of Young Justice where Mr. Freeze gets like his mask and he's like, oh, without it, I can't live or something. And everyone knows that because you can see it. Where I think those moments in this movie makes it seem like he doesn't feel like the audience would get it, or I don't think he has enough confidence in what's being shown, which is pretty disappointing because it happens a decent amount of times, just like hammering you with so much knowledge or just so much, you know, of the universe. Like Lord of the Rings had less expository dialogue than this, or at least they found a clever way of doing it. Or, you know, even like Blade Runner, like, you know, movies where it's just dialogue driven, but they found a more clever way and an interesting way than a movie with a bunch of action and which none of the characters I cared about, because it was hard to really get into either one of the characters, like, you know, the Avatar or, you know, the real person.
I was actually, well, first, let's see. What did you think, Ann?
I mean, this? Yeah, that was probably one of my biggest problems, was that the story takes place in 2 very different worlds, and the Oasis and then Columbus, Ohio, which is in like the real world in this story is like falling apart, and they want to make that as important as the Oasis. and I don't think they were able to really capture or make it so that you cared about those two things, and that kind of translated to the characters. You spent a lot of time in the Oasis with the avatars of the characters, and so those to me felt more fleshed out and real than when we went back to the real world to meet them. And I didn't feel like it was weird because it's like I knew that they were the same people, but I just wasn't getting. I don't know if it was like the performance or if it was just the lines and dialogue and interactions. I just didn't feel like they were equal. And to me, it kind of felt like that the story would have been maybe better served if we had like had the exposition at the beginning just in the Oasis, and we spend most of the time there. And then once it's time to like leave to do something in the real world, then you have this huge shock of like, wow, the world's really falling apart. These characters are not in a good place. Then you kind of deal with that, but I don't know.
I have a theory to that, because I agree. The stuff that happened in real life, the real world part, was not acted very well. But when you were in the Oasis, the voice acting for all the characters was great. So my theory is they filmed all of the live action stuff first, which would make sense. And these characters, the actors, didn't really have time to build any kind of relationship with each other. They probably had a very quick shoot. I'm wondering if Spielberg only did a couple of takes. And then by the time they got used to their characters, since the live action part is really only, 45 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
So they basically filmed 45 minutes, which they probably did in 3 or 4 weeks. And then they went into the studio to do all of the voiceover work. And then that's where they had all the time in the world, because it would take a year and a half to do all the CG effects. If they wanted to redo some of the voices, they could concentrate on that and they could work on it. And the voice directing would be a lot longer. And so they had more time to deal with that. So, but it really showed. Like when you were in the real world, you're like, okay, you're not acting very well. This isn't interesting. Let's go back to the Oasis. And then once we were in the Oasis, you're like, okay, now you can act. This is good. I agree.
To me, I kind of wondered if it was like, if they had more things to do in the real world. Because, like, when we meet Wade and we meet him in the Oasis, we kind of get to see, like, his everyday life in the Oasis with his friends. But we don't get those sorts of situations in the real world. So you really have this sort of unbalanced situation with the characters. So, I mean, it's possible that they could have done the production in a way that didn't, like, lend well to the live-action performances. But I think it's also just the amount of stuff that they had to get through to get to the end of the movie kind of cut down on all the character moments that you would typically have in a Spielberg movie, to where you build up to how they change over the course of the film and stuff.
I think for me, like, maybe they should have had more time in the real world, or at least not have the entire movie revolve around the game, or this quest. And I was just thinking, as you were talking, Ian, about something fairly similar was Harry Potter 4, Goblet of Fire, because they have 3 tasks, and it's revolved around that game. But there's stuff going on outside of the game, a lot more. It's not the better one. I mean, I'm not pushing the bar here high, but like I enjoy it because moves the story along. And I think something like this is a really hard thing. Obviously, something similar where it's all about a game is like a tournament, like Mortal Kombat or Bloodsport, where those are just a movie about here's some dialogue and then here's a bunch of fights and a movie. And
well, the fourth Harry Potter was my favorite book of the Harry Potter series, was the 4th one. And so I agree with you. Like they had a lot of things going on besides just the competition. And in Ready Player One, they didn't have much going on except for the competition. But you also didn't have that much time. You know, it had to be... They made the... like in Harry Potter, the games to get to the one of the eggs was fairly quick. You know, you didn't have to spend a half an hour to try and figure it out. You know, it was like a 10-minute scene. And then you had all this other time to do other parts of the story. With this, every key was supposed to be so complicated that, you know, it took them a really long time to figure out, in screen time, to figure out how to get the key. And so that kind of takes away from any other kind of side stories that you would end up doing.
Yeah. I definitely agree. I think another thing about why Harry Potter 4 works better than this movie, in my opinion, is you have better actors surrounding the kids. And that, I mean, I was bringing this up to Richie. There is no one in this movie. Like, no one really famous or is like, oh, this is an amazing actor. I was like, hey, I've seen this guy before, and Richie had to tell me, oh, it's the guy from Dark Knight Rises. That's the level we're at. Where Harry Potter, you know, had Alan Rickman, it had, I can't think of anyone else right off. Obviously, Ray Fiennes, but it had a bunch of, you know, Academy Award or, you know, BAFTA, amazing actors who can carry scenes and that type of dialogue, where this movie did not have. And I thought the villain did not really have... He was not a strong enough villain, the actor.
Well, Ben Middleton is... I like him a lot. I like Ben Middleton. He played the villain. But his villain in this movie was very much like those kind of standard businessman, CEO, bad guy that you would see in just about every 80s movie. I mean, even RoboCop. Like, he is very much like any of those kind of evil CEO characters.
Yeah, but at least they're snoring coke.
Should have known that.
Fair enough.
We needed more coke.
I think Middleton would have done much better if they gave him a bit more to do instead of making him a two-dimensional villain. Because I think he's a good enough actor that he could pull it off. You know, he's done a lot of roles that I liked. He was really good in Rogue One. I liked his character in Rogue One. So I think he had the ability to do it. They just didn't give him enough to play with in his character.
Because they took away part of his introduction too. Like, he was a victim of the expositionary speech in the beginning. Like, instead of seeing him, you know, being villainous, Ty Sheridan has to tell us that he's nefarious and shady.
Yeah, and then they touched on his character when you're looking at the memory, but it was very quick. You're like, there's more there. You could have given us a bit more.
Yeah.
Like even another scene or two of a different time period, of a different situation, you know, something like that. Mm-hmm. What did you think about the action? Now, I know there was a lot of stuff going on screen. And some people saw that as, like, really confusing, hard to follow. Which I can understand. But the edits weren't too quick. Like, the edits were medium length for the most part. And I wasn't confused. But there is a lot of things it's hard to tell what to focus on. And I saw that more as... first viewing, it can be a little overwhelming in the beginning, like what Ian said. But then you kind of focus on what's in the middle. But on multiple viewings, I think it would be interesting to be able to look at different parts of the screen instead of the direct middle. And you can pick up other, you know, for like a multiple viewing thing, that you could pick up something different almost every time if you look at a different part during those sequences. Would this movie be something you would be interested in watching again to see if you pick up some of that stuff? Or are you just going to be one and done, never watch it again like Matt is?
For me?
This is more a question for Ian because I know Matt's answer.
Because Matt's never going to watch this movie again.
Nah, he's not gonna watch it again, unless someone forces him.
I hope that never happens.
I would be open to watching it again, at some point. I wasn't really. I mean, I'm not into a lot of 80s culture, so for me, it wasn't like. I mean, I saw articles popping up as soon as this movie came out, like, how many times have you seen it to catch every of the 250 Easter eggs in this movie? And I'm like, that's not really why I want to watch the movie. So, I mean, that's not really for me. I think for some people that'll be really fun and a cool opportunity to go back and, get more out of the movie. But that wasn't really what I was there for. So
I really do think this movie was made for old nerds like myself, because everything in there is, even, the guy who wrote it was my age. So it's like, I think it really was made for us older nerds. But I think there's enough common references in there that, like, you guys obviously got them. But I think the nostalgia really hits someone my age more than it would yours.
Obviously, I would agree, because I wasn't alive at that time period. So,
I was thinking, Matt, we should, after we do this a while, collect all the movies that
Matt just ages them on you.
Well, that Matt gives D's and F's to. And while Ian was talking, I had a flash in my head, a brilliant idea of recreating Clockwork Orange and having Matt strapped in a chair with his eyes open.
Gosh.
And just forcing him to rewatch all of those movies in a row.
Tomb Raider again.
Tomb Raider, Ready Player One. We'll just Dread. We'll just go through all of them and we'll come back when you're done and film and see how it goes.
Oh gosh, I will say this, for me, in terms of the action, I mean, none of it had weight, because it's just kind of jarring seeing a live action person sometimes as the action's happening, and then a CG character. I think the movie honestly would either play better in two ways. A video game, this would have been a sweet video game, or two, an animated movie. I think seeing, a human animated character who walks in kind of like the main character of Zootopia, seeing this vast world, and it's like, I'm going to go into the oasis, and then you go in and you hear Tom Sawyer play from Rush, and you're just like right into it. And I think for me it would have been more exciting, because I don't know, there's just something about seeing it animated would have been more exciting to see this craziness happening, because you're used to that animated movies with, anime and cartoons, where live action, especially CG, it gets so ridiculous and there's just too much of it. It's like, let's just make it smaller, and then everyone will be...
You intrigued me on animation. That would actually be really good, but I was thinking it would be awesome if the real world parts were in a Japanese anime style and the oasis was CGI.
I was
like, you have both mediums in there.
That'd be cool. Well, speaking of a Japanese style, they definitely had a couple of characters who were Asian, in which this is my start of a count of stereotypical things in movies. And of course, the Asian guy knew martial arts. I can't stand that so much. And he's 16 and fighting like a 30-something-year-old. He should have got smacked in the face and just been flown across. Not like all of a sudden this like martial art fight scene breaks out. It's like, where has this been the entire time?
Yeah, I can see that. That is a very common stereotype. The martial artist you get in your movie has to be Asian. It's as if you can't believe it that they know how to fight unless they're Asian.
And the only Asian guys had ninja outfits and samurai outfits. I know a crap ton of my friends who would pick the samurai outfit and not, be the giant orc thing that whatever she is, or, whatever, like, I would have been in a samurai outfit, or I would have been just a guy who's carrying nunchucks and kicking the crap out of a bunch of people. But like, I don't know, it just gets tiring to see it, especially when they try to tell you that they actually care about diversity. Don't want to go on
And the 11-year-old kid who was like supposed to be like super smart, he was also an Asian character. But what annoyed me more about his character was like the first time they made the joke about how young he is, they like repeated that joke. Like that was like the only thing he said. And
Dude, their internet's better.
Yeah, they were repeating his, kid joke a few times too many, which they really should only have it one, maybe two times when a new character comes in and they're like, he gets halfway through the joke and he's like, yeah. But I think they did it, 3-4 times maybe, that he was young.
Oh, I mean, they bring it up a lot because he's only on. Once again, going back to there's not a lot of live action stuff. The amount of times you see him in the movie, live action character, I think they bring it up. And so it's like, oh, okay, I guess we're going to just keep going back to this joke. Only one. And I feel like it was somewhat interesting the beginning, having the abusive parents or the abusive foster kids. And it just kind of, oh, no, let's not go into that at all. Or, they just kind of die after one scene. Which
about
is like,
Wade's parents?
Yeah. Or Wade's fake parents.
His aunt.
Aunt and uncle,
yeah. Boyfriend.
Or aunt and boyfriend.
Yeah. And speaking of that, he nonchalantly says that his parents are dead, like he did it. Oh, my parents are gone. It's like...
Well,
I don't think...
it could have happened when he was really young. It's not something that would be super traumatic.
It happened when he was 10, because I did the math. She was like almost 60. She was 50 when she had him, which is insane. You mean to tell me that this 50... unless technology has gone superior, but like she was 50 when she had him, and he was 10 years old when she died, yet acts like nothing happened. It was like, oh yeah, my parents died just like all these other, oh well, go to the next scene. Like,
the only weird thing that I found about that was when they do the thing where his aunt and her boyfriend are abusive to him, and then they go and they blow up his aunt's house, and it's supposed to be like this big moment where you care. And I was like, you really didn't set them up to where I was supposed to care about.
Yeah, it's like these people are pretty bad.
Like, I don't want them to die, but like,
we only had 2 scenes with them.
Yeah.
They were throwaway characters, and then you threw them away. So why would we care when you built them up as throwaway characters? I totally agree with that. I'm pretty much done. Like, for me, the movie wasn't, it's not a deep movie. It doesn't have amazing themes. It's a very simple story, but
this should be a big complaint, though, for both of you. Where's the Spielberg references? I was waiting for, like, Indiana Jones, E.T., or Jaws, and there's just none of that. You'd think that Spielberg would, like, put in iconic movies that people in the 80s would have been watching, and there's just none of that. Like, the part where he throws Chucky, I was like, you know what, they should have been stupid, and they should have, like, thrown the Covenant, the Covenant of Ark, like, launched the dang thing, and it opens up, and someone's like, don't look at it! And, like, they're driving, they just run into something and blow up because they're not looking, and they should be paying attention to the road.
The Ark would have been a very good weapon that people could buy.
Yeah.
That would have been I didn't even think of that, but yeah.
Well, it would have been amazing to see, like, because they had the Batmobile, so it would have been amazing if you saw the Jaw shark, and it gets attached to someone. Someone has to use the shark repellent bat spray to get the Jaw shark off of them. I would have been like, okay, now we're getting into a little bit more clever references that a lot of people do know. And it's just funny to see a giant shark attach to someone's foot.
Would you want Jaws to be in a tornado?
That No, no. Also, once again, Warner Brothers did it. Where was Lord of the Rings? Like,
It's hard to get the rights to that.
where was Harry Potter? You would think like two of the biggest franchises. No, we're going to throw in Halo. I mean, Halo's pretty big, but I
It's
mean,
also a video game thing.
Yeah, I mean, but it's also kind of random compared to.
I would say the stuff that they were able to put in the movie were things that they were able to get at a reasonable price for the rights to be able to do it. If you watch, like I was looking at the credits and they showed the list of the licensees that they did. All of the licenses were huge. So, I mean, their budget would not be big enough to be able to license some of these larger things. But licensing all of the smaller pop culture references, I think, would have been, licensing Chucky is probably not anywhere near as much as licensing Aragon from Lord of the Rings. You know what I mean?
Or an actual xenomorph. I mean, they got the chest burster, but not the actual.
Yeah, I mean, not every movie can be the Lego Batman movie where you can just pull in.
See, like
Lego has a unique deal with that, though.
I was thinking of like that or the Lego movie. I was like, the Lego movie is just such a better movie because they got they got like the businessman, like Lord Business, but they also have a really good actor playing him, Will Ferrell, and they also have a better actor playing the main character. Isn't that Chris Pratt?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you should never. I think a rule of thumb should be if you're going to have 17-year-olds be in a $175 or $200 million movie and be the lead person, you have to have really good actors surrounding them, like a Harry Potter movie. And that just isn't like, 20 years ago when you and I were kids, Ian, or you were watching, you were alive. I don't know why I'm doing that, but
Matt, you were also alive.
Yes, fair. But 20 years ago for like kids movies, because like this feels like it could be just like for a family movie. Family movies did not cost this much. Like I was thinking, I'm like, they would have never put this much money into Richie Rich or like Inflated or like Home Alone or something like that. Like they put in a good amount, but $200 million for like this. No. There should never be a kids movie that costs that much, unless they're doing something insane.
Well, this isn't technically a kids movie. It's a nostalgia film for people like me that are 40 years old. But it's not a kids movie.
Small.
I mean, when they threw Chucky, you heard the guy yell out, fuck! Like, that's not going to be in a kids movie. This is a hard PG-13, if anything. A lot of violence, a lot of sexuality, a lot of, perversion that's on the internet. It's not made for an 8-year-old. You know what I mean? It's made for old guys like me.
Wow.
I mean, that is one thing that, like, the box office, analysts were talking about when the critics when the movie came out is it opened at 50 million, which was higher than a lot of expectations, but a lot of the reasons why people said that it was lower was because they weren't sure, like if teenagers and younger adults would go and see this movie, because a lot of the people that I heard online talking about it were around Koricon's age, so they're all like, well, this movie seems like it's made for me, but we aren't going to the movies the most, buying the most tickets. So like that is something that they probably should have considered maybe.
Yeah, that's why a lot of movies try to be PG-13, is the majority of the people that go and see movies in a theater are teenagers through mid-20s.
Let's go back to a time where we're just like, see, this would have been amazing. All right, picture this. You see, like, I'm trying to think of a character. Yeah, all right. So just think of like so you have like Marty McFly or like the DeLorean or something, or the Batmobile, and you're you're riding along, and all of a sudden that thing blows up. The main character's on a beach, and he looks up and he sees Tom Hanks, and they're running through Normandy, and a bunch of people are just getting mowed down. And then, of course, who's controlling the Nazis but Sauron and the Eye? I'm not gonna lie, I would have loved that, but like, oh man,
I think once you got into Saving Private Ryan, you lost the 4-quadrant audience or whatever that you're supposed to go for.
Yeah.
No, hard R.
Yeah, but Matt would only like it if limbs get blown off. If there's no limbs getting blown off, he wouldn't like it.
Well, this was a chore, I will say.
Well, I thought it was fun, but I think it is geared for my age. Like, I am the demographic for this movie. So it hit all of my nostalgia feels a lot more than it would hit any of your guys's, because you're a lot younger than I am. But what would be your overall grade for the movie? Let me guess on Matt's. I'm gonna guess. Go ahead, Ian.
Okay, so I guess for my final thoughts, I thought most of the performances were pretty good in this movie. I know, Matt, I'm sorry. I did wanted to note that I thought it was interesting. I watched Jaws last night, and then Richard Dreyfuss is in that movie, and he's in a lot of like the Spielberg and like American Graffiti from Lucas this time. And I almost feel like Ty Sheridan might have been cast because he kind of he looks almost like him at that age. I thought that might have been interesting. But I thought that, the Oasis and the effects there, I thought were, like, really top-notch. I'm sorry, Matt. I thought that, when I saw Black Panther earlier, I didn't think that there were some areas in that movie where the effects did not hold up as much. But I think here, it really looked like they put time and attention into them. And I think since that was the point of the movie, that was important that worked. There were some story things that I think I've touched on that I didn't feel were strong enough. I also know that the book is very big and very dense, so I could see that as being a struggle as well. Overall, I think I give it like an 8. It was enjoyable, but it wasn't something that's like gonna didn't knock my socks off, but it was okay. Matt, are you having a stroke over there?
All right, Matt. What is your overall and your grade?
So my final thoughts for this wonderful flick was, I, from beginning to end, was upset, irritated, and exhausted from, I guess, just a movie with a bunch of CGI, and I obviously don't care for CGI movies, especially when there is no weight to anything that is happening. I don't care about any of the humans, except for this one random guy who came up to the main villain and was like, "We found something, sir!" And I laughed there. I was like, that was the only reaction. I was like, oh, that was fine. And I also have a guy coming through like 3/4 the way through the movie. That was the most entertaining part. Was a guy came in 3/4 the way through the movie, watched it, and ordered something like food. I was like, wow. But yeah.
You did a dine-in?
Yeah, yes. Will I ever watch this again? No. Would I recommend this to anyone? Only if I don't like them. I give this, obviously, an F for my first thoughts seeing the opening. F me.
I say D. I said,
oh, man.
I thought you were going to do a D, but
I thought it was going to be an F.
I should have just guessed F, because it seems like you have 2 grades. You have A and F. You don't really seem to have anything in the middle.
I gave Annihilation a B, and I gave Godzilla and I gave Godzilla and Black Cauldron a C plus and a C minus.
That's true.
Was this movie better than Tomb Raider?
No, Tomb Raider was pretty bland and boring. This movie, I just hate nostalgia. I hate everything about nostalgia. I want to kill nostalgia. I want to take a gun and blow a hole right through nostalgia because I hate everything it tries to do to me, and I will never react properly to nostalgia. And so, of course, this movie is all about nostalgia. And I was like, nope, not reacting. Don't care that DeLorean, one of my favorite movies, is shown on screen. Don't care. I love The Iron Giant, and I was a kid when I saw that in theaters. Don't care. Don't care about Goro. Nope, you're not going to get a reaction from me. Yeah. Hate nostalgia and stop using it to make people react. I hate it.
All right, so Matt's dead inside.
Thank
I'm
God we're doing
going to try to use that quote from Matt at some point in our careers, I feel like.
Someone cut that and make it a meme. Or a GIF. Turn it into a GIF. For me, I don't mind nostalgia. I like nostalgia. I think it's fun when it happens. Now, it could be Matt's just not old enough for nostalgia to have real meaning yet. Because nostalgia for you was, 5 years ago?
Hey!
Nostalgia for me is 20 to 30 years ago. So I think as you get older, nostalgia has a stronger meaning to it. It could be. It's just a theory. But for me, I like nostalgia. But I don't think nostalgia should be used as an excuse to not have good story, good characters, and all that kind of stuff. On a nostalgia level of just going into this movie, turn off your brain, eat your popcorn, and have fun, nostalgia fun, I would give it an A minus. But when it comes to story and characters and acting and all of that stuff, I would give it a B minus. Just because it was still fun, but there were a lot of problems with the live action part, but the live action part was only a quarter of the film. I did like the CG stuff. I am a fan of CGI. I like animated films as well. Basically, I like everything Matt doesn't, which is fine. That's what makes these conversations interesting. Unless we talk martial art films, like that, then we have something in common. But
well, I mean, I will say we will get into if we do one, we will be criticizing certain parts of those. But anyway, go on.
Yeah. So for me, I like CGI. I like animated films. And I thought the CGI stuff was good. I thought the voice acting during those sequences was good. And I liked the idea of the Oasis. I liked a lot of the stuff that happened in the Oasis I enjoyed. It was just the real world parts that I didn't like. And some of the characters, a lot of the characters were only two-dimensional or one-dimensional. So I would give the movie overall a B minus just because it was fun. But for my immediate nostalgia funness, I gave it an A minus in my spoiler-free review, just because I was still living on that kind of really fun high. But when I think about the movie after the fact, it's been a while, I think my overall grade would end up being a B minus. But thank you guys for watching. Thanks for joining. I think Ian has to go, and me and Matt are going to be going over A Quiet Place. So shh. Yeah, shh. Which means no talking, Matt.
Oh.
And it'll be our highest rated video.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Anyway, me and Matt are going to be talking about A Quiet Place. And stick around for that. If you're on YouTube, go and check that out. It'll be the next video, which I guess on YouTube would come up on the next day because I'm going to, separate out when these videos get released. Yeah. But you can always check it on Twitter if it hadn't come out yet. And if you're on podcast, thank you for listening. Check out our other stuff. All of my reviews and our long form stuff goes to the podcast, and we have different playlists for all of that stuff. But comment below and let us know your thoughts on Ready Player One. What did you like? What did you not like? Do you agree with Matt? Do you agree with me? Do you agree with Ian? Do you disagree with all of us and you have a totally different opinion?
Or you just disagree with me.
Yeah, which is fine. That'll be like 80-90% of everybody.
That's the usual.
But let us know your thoughts. Like, share, and subscribe. Tell your friends. And we will see you on the next video.